Well, hello, action takers. We are back after day 3 of the 5-day Unshakable Challenge by Tony Robbins. And we are doing these recaps so we can save you time, effort, and energy in order to help you become the best version of yourself in the fastest way possible. So, if you haven't already, be sure to hit follow and get this info as it drops so you don't miss a thing. Today, we covered my favorite topic, how to ensure an unshakable future by creating your own economy. Not only did Tony teach us the only 3 keys you need to operate your own business, but we heard directly from Sarah Blakely, who invented Spanx and became the youngest woman billionaire in United States history. She covered the keys that helped her go from a very average high school kid to revolutionizing the fashion industry. We also heard from Jamie Kern Lima, who built the best-selling makeup brand in TV history from her living room. She went on to sell that brand to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion, and they even kept her on as the CEO, making her the first woman CEO for that makeup company in 100 years. Once again, I'm David B., one of your hosts of the IDK WTF I Was Doing podcast, and one of the main principles Tony Robbins teaches is the way to ensure financial stability in your future is to add more value than anyone else does in your category, which is exactly what we aim to do with this podcast. So be sure to listen all the way through and hit that follow button so we can do more recaps of big events for you, just like this. Have you ever started something new and didn't finish it?
You were excited. You invested time and money.
You got stuck.
I'm Teresa Merrick.
And I'm David B.
And this is the podcast with 2 ADHD entrepreneurs, and we've been there.
And worked with hundreds of people in the exact same place.
The IDK WTF I Was Doing podcast will take you away from feelings of frustration and overwhelm.
And lead you to the clarity you need to take action and get shit done.
Listen today because it's important to admit that no one really knows
what the fuck they're doing.
This is a great challenge. It's so awesome to see so many people involved in this, doing it like together. I think that's crazy. And they had another 100,000 people jump in today. And that's just absolutely astounding. So you should feel good, especially if you're back again for the 3rd day watching, because so many people, again, they get that momentum and then something comes up and then they fall off. I'm David B. I'm one of the hosts of the IDK WTF I Was Doing podcast. And the reason that we're sharing this, it's just so in line with what we're teaching, where people start stuff, they get overwhelmed, they get stuck. And so we wanted to do this quick recap for the people who can't make it to the whole 2.5, almost 3 hours events. We started off another day. So KK came up and she did just a really quick introduction, but really today was about creating your own economy. Again, we've entered a winter. Things are going to get worse and worse. So how do you stay unshakable? A great way to do that is not be dependent on an outside force for your income to come in. So creating your own economy. So Brian Bradley started us off again today. He's the physiotherapist with the Egoscue method. And basically, when you're going to be sitting for a while, it's a great thing to do to warm up. When the body is aligned, you can be pain-free. When you're going to be sitting for a while, do just some regular stretches. And so the one tip that he gave us was to cinch up your backpack when you're traveling and just to keep the weight distributed better. They had a gentleman, so then they jumped into the content. They shared some of the homework exercises, and they had a gentleman named Rico who came in, who shared his life story. He was one of the participants last year in the very similar challenge. I'm not going to tell his whole story, but what was interesting, because he's very thug life. He grew up in a gang environment, been to jail, did a bunch of stuff, and now he's out of that. He was really motivated because he wanted to get custody of his children back. And even at the point where he thought he was his best, he realized he was still making terrible choices just because of the environment he was brought up in and the lifestyle traumas that resulted in that. And so he ended up going to this exact challenge and then going to Tony's bigger event, the UPW, and just really came out motivated to help people. He was making more income. He had a job. He got custody of kids back. He was running meetings to help, others to get a better life for themselves as well. And I thought that was something that was really interesting because a lot of people, depending on what your background is, Tony Robbins is an old white guy, right? And so a lot of people will just instinctively not listen to him because he has no idea what it's like to go through the struggle that someone else has. But the principles work anywhere, but depending on how the message is presented, people aren't going to listen to it. So the more people in the more areas of the world who can work on their own traumas, who can set the right direction for their life with intention and integrity and just be mission driven. It doesn't matter what your lifestyle is like. But what matters is just that drive to be a better person and to heal some of those wounds from the past. And then I thought that was a really cool message that Rico was sharing. But it went back into, Tony jumped in, we're going to focus on our financial future. Tony talks about his story about how when early on he had some success with his coaching business and he was starting to make money. And then he went back to his friends and he was like, hey guys, let's go do these exciting things and let's go do this and let's go do that. And he was met instead of with like excitement and gratitude, he was met with resistance and resentment because they were like, well, it's easy for you to do this because you have money. We've got work. You don't know what it's like. You don't even, and Tony was broke and living in his car and just struggling for a very long time. And so he was really hurt and he had to go back to one of his mentors to get advice. And so what happened was he started self-sabotaging because he was hurt. And he was like, well, if I did all of this work, nobody even cares. No one appreciates it. So he lost his drive, right? He ended up gaining 40 pounds. He was losing his money and he was really on the defensive when someone was asking him like, what was going on? And then he realized, he went back to one of his mentors to get advice. And he ended up just asking himself, like, if you could grow more, should you? If you could give more, should you? If you could actually own more of what's possible in your life, should you? And all of those were a very strong, resounding yes. And then he asked himself, if you could make more money, would you? And he was just like, because he had been so hurt from being rejected from his social group. And this is something else he talks about, like one of the needs of humans is acceptance and community. And when that's threatened, we will do whatever it takes to keep that need, to get that need met. And he was self-sabotaging to get back into his community unconsciously. He didn't even realize it. But what he ended up doing was having a perspective shift and deciding that he is no longer going to care about the negative influence of the outside world. And at this point, he is absolutely committed to his mission. And that's the other big barrier that helped him grow to that next level of success. So it's another very frustrating thing because you can see that there are people in the world who struggle. There are people who cannot pay their bills, who are cold, who are hungry. And there are other people with so much excess and surplus that it really, really seems unfair. And this is a question that he presented to his mentor, Jim Rohn. And what Jim Rohn said was, he says, Tony, we are all equal as souls. And this is something I absolutely believe that there is nobody who is better than anyone else in this world. We are all equal. But what Jim Rohn says is we are not equal in the marketplace. And some people just have more skills than others, and they're able to utilize it in that way. Again, there's a whole lot of like context around that Tony does not go into, but the fundamental core of it is very true. If you want to do well financially, you have to do more for others than anyone else in your category. That's one of the number one principles that Tony Robbins teaches. If you want to jump ahead, do more for others than anybody else does. And to do that effectively, you have to master your own skills first. You have to invest in yourself to get more skills and more abilities. And when you have more skills and more abilities, no one can ever take that from you. That's true wealth and value. He uses the example of someone at McDonald's. They make below minimum wage, which is poverty line income, right? But it's a very easy skill set, and those jobs are going to be replaced with computers and robots in the very near future. So what do we do when that happens? We have to have more skills. We have to have more abilities so we can go do something else. And something like this is great. Going to a 5-day challenge is a great start, but it's not that immersion. And it's not really mastering new skills. This is just to expose us to that world. And then we have to go do more afterwards. And he uses the example of this as well. It's like, how many of us learned a language in high school or college? And then how many of us don't speak that language anymore today? We never used it. We never did anything with it. Even in high school, if we did 2 or 4 years of learning a different language, it doesn't stick forever. So what are some other ways to earn some more income and to earn some more skills? One of the best ways really is to invest in something. And this is a lesson that I learned a couple years ago, honestly. He used the example is if you own an iPhone, but you don't own Apple stock, what are you doing? If you're buying an iPhone or a Samsung every single year and you don't own their stock is going up year after year after year. And we're just paying more and more money to buy this thing. So we're consuming, we're not getting anything back, even though we like their products, right? If you're a diehard Apple fan and you've got everything Apple, why not own their stock and get some money back? This happened to me so a couple years ago, I think it was right at the end of 2018. The partner I was with, we bought a Tesla car and there was this huge government rebate. So we got like almost $10,000 back in cash for buying it. And it was just silly not to. And at this point, Elon Musk was still awesome. Like we super loved him before his whole spiral downward, which has been fun to watch. But I didn't consider buying Tesla stock, even though I loved the products. I love everything that he was doing at the time. And I was really big on that level of innovation. So much so I was like, I have to own one of these cars. Bought one, didn't buy the stock. And the stock just, I think it went up just an insane amount since 2018 that would have paid for the car. Even if I had put $1,000 in there, it's just stupid that I didn't, because I didn't know. And something easy, you could download an app called Robinhood. That was my lesson. Download an app called Robinhood and you can just trade. It's really easy. They don't take fees. It's like putting money into a savings account, but you're just putting it into a stock that you like. So Robinhood is a totally free app, not sponsored, but check it out. I'm sure there's other ones out there. So the other thing you can do so that's being an investor. The other way you can go is to be an owner. So owning your own business. The thing about business is business truly is an act of service. Now, the issue these days is that we have these and this is my own personal viewpoint. He didn't say that, but we have these own major corporations that are outside of serving. But when we have small business owners, the whole point of owning a small business is because you have a passion about something and you're giving to others. You're giving them value, whether it's your food that you're making because you have a restaurant and you just love doing that, or it's a craft that you're building and you want to share that, or it's your art, or it's you want to teach someone how to do a hobby, something that you have inside of you that you're good at, that you have a skill at, that you can share with others. That is the definition of love. And it's okay to be compensated for that. But what's happened is a lot of these businesses has gotten out of the mindset of sharing love, and it's just about earning income, even if it's hurting the people who are buying from you. And that's a big issue. And then the other thing is not everyone can be a business owner, but even if you work for someone else, you can think of that job like you're an owner. And he says, the more you act like an owner, you will eventually become one. He then had someone named Sarah Blakely come on, who many of you may know, but she was the inventor of Spanx, and she is the youngest female billionaire in United States history. But she told her story of kind of what happened and how she got there. And so instead of telling exactly her story, because she is way better at telling it, I'm just going to pull out some of the key points from her story and some of the biggest takeaways. And one of the things that kind of changed her very early on in her age was at the age of 16, her best friend and her were out on a bike ride, and her friend ended up getting hit by a car and killed in front of her. And that was just a devastating moment in anyone's life, but it just showed her that life is not forever. It's really easy, especially when we're young, to think that nothing bad can happen and everything goes on forever. And that was taken away from her. So she knew this is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is all we have. And then as things went on in her life, she ended up working for Xerox, the copier company. And she was a salesperson for them. And at one point she just had that epiphany, which is very similar to what I had when I quit retail, was like, why am I selling stuff for other people? I'm good at this. Why am I making so many other people so much money with my skill set? And so at that point, she decided she had to go do something for herself. It took her a couple of years to figure out exactly what that is and to come up with Spanx. but that was shift for her. And she started looking for it. One thing she said that's jumped out to me was one of the reasons she was so good at sales is because she was able to convey the what's in it for me immediately. Whenever you're presenting a product to someone or a service to someone, it's really easy to fall in love with your own product. And here's what's so cool about it. But to actually tell someone the benefit that they're going to get in as few words as possible was the key. And I thought that was pretty cool. Another benefit she had was she actually had a father that encouraged failure. And so in her life, encouraging failure instead of encouraging success, she didn't realize that it was something to be appreciated at the time, but it made her look at, it gave her the habit of being able to try over and over and over again without getting discouraged right away. So by making it not about the outcome, but by making it the process of attempting is what really pushed her to go ahead, because she got so many no's when trying to sell her product. The other one that really jumped out to me, and this is what a lot of my clients will say too, is they're like, well, I don't know how to do this yet, or I don't know the right way to do it. I need to research it more. There's a benefit to not knowing how to do something. And so what she ended up doing when she had her Spanx, her like prototype for Spanx, she ended up just calling Neiman Marcus, which is one of the big retailers, and just got a meeting with the buyer, the person who buys for all the stores. And later, and she did well on that and ended up selling it. And that was her takeoff. And then another friend in the industry was like, how did you possibly end up with a meeting with Neiman Marcus? And she's like, what do you mean? I just called them. And the typical process is you have your product, you go to a bunch of trade shows, you send out samples, you do all this kind of stuff. And eventually in 5 to 6 years, Neiman Marcus comes up to you and says, hey, I want to put you in the store. And she had no idea that that was even a thing. She was like, I didn't even know there were trade shows. So not knowing how to do something gives you that little benefit of ignorance. And you might just do something different that works so much better than what everyone else out there. If you're following the traditional advice, you're going to make the same mistakes and it's going to take the same amount of time. Now, she also gives the framework of just make something, sell it, and then build awareness around it. Start with something small. You want to start selling small, but you want to build that awareness quickly. So the faster you can get brand awareness out there, she had to do it because she knew there were going to be competitors ripping off her product. And she wanted everyone to know that she was the first one to make it. But this can be just for anything else out there, no matter what you're trying to sell. If no one knows that it's there, no one can buy it. And then she says the other big key is find something you care about more than yourself. So Sarah Blakely knows that she was simply like her biggest motivator. She was just lucky being born in the right country at the right time. She says she has opportunities that her mother and grandmother absolutely never did. And women in other countries still don't. The only reason she was able to get to her level of success is because of the luck of when she was born. She even realized that the majority of the industry she's working in doesn't care about how women feels. She's in the fashion industry that caters mostly to women's fashion. And as she's going to meetings and going to the factories, talking about how to make the products and make it more accommodating to its primary demographic, that's still all run by men who just don't care and don't understand. So that's a big motivator for her, is to help be a woman-owned company for women. So I thought that was really cool. And especially for those who don't have the opportunity. Tony Robbins then comes back out and he again says, if you operate like an owner, you'll become one. And there are 3 keys to operating a business. The fastest business lesson you're ever going to get. So the 3 keys to operate a business is number 1, understand your ideal client. And again, this is something that so many people just, when they're trying to start a business, they don't want to do, or they won't do. You feel like if you niche down and you omit people that you could be selling to, that you're losing the potential for selling something, but it's absolutely not true. You want to find who your ideal client is and talk directly to them. You don't want to talk to everyone. You want to talk to your ideal client. He gave the example of Zappos shoes. And this was a shoe company when it first started out. They said, we're going to sell shoes to women. They had perfect messaging all around it. They knew that women love shoes. They had great shoes, but they were going bankrupt because it's a hassle, especially back in the early 2000s, trying to buy something online. You have to pay for shipping. It gets to your house. If you don't like it, then you have to box it back up, go to the post office, pay to get it shipped back. And just, it wasn't fun at that time, really. I mean, it's still not fun. But so the first one is to understand your ideal client, which they were doing well. The second step is to create an irresistible offer. So this was the issue with Zappos, is it's a pain. And if you want to try on a shoe, that's something you want to try on. It's like you want to go to a store, try it on. If it doesn't fit, then you can try a different on. You want to see how it looks. So they came up with, what can we do to make an irresistible offer? Basically, they said, if we'll pay the shipping there and we'll pay the shipping back. You can buy as much as you want. There's no charges for refunds. Get what you want, send it back. Not a big deal at all. And at first they were very much against this. They were like, with all that back and forth shipping, we're going to go bankrupt. We said, well, you're already going bankrupt, so may as well try this. And it absolutely took off, and their company is worth like $50 billion or something right now, like literally that much. And then the third tip Tony puts in there is to over deliver on your offer. And actually, personally, with my clients, I'm particularly good at helping them build irresistible offers by taking like the products that they have, the concepts that they want to teach, and packaging it in a way that's really, really customized to their ideal client. And then that next level of over delivering on your offer, that's something I personally need to work on too, because I've actually even seen it. I forget what the company is, but it was like a natural, like cleaning products. So it was like groceries, but everything other than the food that you would get from the grocery store, they would send you a box to your house each month. And then they just say, oh, you spent this much, here's some extra stuff. Oh, you spent this much, here's some extra stuff. So in 2020, I ended up like this, just a ton of cleaning stuff that I just did not need, but they just sent me all kinds of free things. It was super cool. But anyway, so I think companies are much more picking up on the over deliver aspect by rewarding you for doing business with them. So I think that's a great message to have. So then we popped into the concept of, again, we're entering a winter. Winters are the best time to start a business. Of the Fortune 1000 companies, which are the top 1000 companies in all of business, over 65% of them were started in a financial winter. So if you can provide value during a winter, you will thrive. People will still buy from you if you have a good product with a good value and a good message, and you're doing it in a good way. And if you can do that and present that when times are hard, so if you can thrive in winter, you can thrive forever. So he then had Jamie Kern-Lima come up. She had the number one selling brand on QVC, which is the TV shopping channel. And she has the number one selling brand on there, and she built it in her own living room. So again, I'm not going to talk about her story as much because she tells it way better, but I'll tell the big takeaways. She says, where we come from doesn't have to determine where we are going. Self-doubt kills more dreams than almost anything else. You can only accelerate to the level you believe you're worthy of. And I thought that's such a powerful message. She says, imagine if the 1.4 million people who all watch this today turned down the volume of their self-doubt and turned up the volume of their self-worth. Imagine if all 1.4 million people watching did that. Imagine the businesses that would be started, the level of relationships that would be improved. Imagine the books written, the new connections that are formed. If that would be a shift in the entire energy of the world. And if only we could do that. So she asks, if you had no fear of failure or rejection, what would you do? And her message is that if you change your relationship with rejection, you will that's the one thing that will single-handedly change your life. So she asks you to really sit and think with this for a second. She says, when you feel like you've had a rejection, what is the first thought you have? So think of that one. When you feel like you've had a rejection, at a time when someone has rejected you, what is the first thought you've had? Mine was, maybe I am wrong. And then remember, Tony Robbins says, when you add the words I am to anything, it cements it into your identity. So every time you have rejection, you have that internal thought of maybe I am wrong. Maybe I am worthless. Maybe I am dumb. That cements that into your identity even deeper. So if you can change that relationship, you can change your life forever. So what Jamie did was she rewrote that into, instead of thinking, maybe I am a failure, she rewrote that script into, I am one of the brave ones willing to do this. They don't see it, but I'm one of the brave ones and I'm willing to go for it. And this came about with one of the biggest rejections in her life, which she tells the story of, but it's just a brutal situation. And something happened. She felt it in her gut. It hurt. But what she heard was a switch in her mind, right? She says the voice of God, the voice of the universe, what it told her was, you are not being rejected right now. I'm hiding your value from him because he isn't aligned with your destiny. And so rejection is God's protection, is the message from that. If you rewrite that script, you can do literally anything. So her exercise for you is to write a new definition for you. Anytime you're fearing failure, fearing rejection, what's a new definition that you're going to have? Again, that's something I'm going to work on right after this. So instead of maybe I'm wrong, it's I am proud that I'm able to see what others can't. Something like that. She says, how did I build $1 billion business from my living room? I decided to change my relationship with failure. I decided I was worthy and capable enough to do it. And I hope that you are too. I want you to make your dreams your plans and that you can listen to it and live your vision. And I thought that was wonderful. All right. So then Tony Robbins comes back up. And again, it's talking about training yourself to say yes. The key is to keep going with your journey and immerse yourself as much as possible. When you think about something, it's just a dream. When you plan it, it starts to become possible. But when you enroll yourself into it, it can then become a reality. And of course, day 3, he then does put out his irresistible offer. And we all knew there was going to be sales offer in this thing. And again, I'm not affiliated with this at all. I did say it in one of the earlier videos. I've been lucky enough to work with him on some other projects in the past. I'm not doing this one. Really, I just jumped in here because, again, I want to see what the top people are doing, how they're running their programs, how they're running their events, and just see what they're offering. I really assumed he was going to be putting out some $2,000 program, a ticket to UPW along with $2,000 other dollars worth of stuff, because that's pretty standard. And it like blew me away because it's less than $500. It was 400 something, a quarter of the cost what I was expecting. You get a ticket to UPW, which is his biggest event. It was to get a VIP ticket, it was 10 grand when it was live before 2020. And I had the opportunity to go to one and I couldn't make it work. And that's one of my biggest regrets. And it's insane because it's like frustrating as an entrepreneur as well, who I do events and I sell some products. It's frustrating because he has such a big reach. He can talk to so many people. He's got people in every single country. And so he can cut this price down ridiculously low because he's going to be selling it to more people. And there's no one else he's the best person to buy from. There's no reason to buy a product from anyone else. There's 2 people I always say to buy from. One is the best in the industry, or the person who's just a little bit ahead of you. So there's a lot of other just top experts out there who are good, but most of them are just teaching what Tony Robbins taught them. So why not learn from the best person in like the literal best environment to do it? And then it's like a 3 payment plan for 100 something. It's stupid. It's so stupid and expensive. It makes me angry. I'm not going to lie. But then they took a break and so people can go buy it. And then he came back and did a recap. So basically the first day of this event was change your story, change your life, and tap into new parts of your day. 2 was the only way to break through is by changing your state first. Only when you change that state can you change your story. Day number 3 is to become crystal clear about changing the patterns, and that was today, keeping you from your success, and use that to build a rock solid financial future. And then tomorrow we're going to be talking about how to massively enhance our relationships with exact tools to get unstuck, out of fighting, out of frustration, and increase passion as well as relationships. And so I think that's pretty good day. The homework is to write down, where are you right now in your career, work, or business? Prompt number 2 is, where do you want to be in your career, work, or business? And then what do you need to do now to close that gap? Do you need to innovate more? Do you need to market better? Or do you need to have an irresistible offer? Or what else is stopping you from getting there? So that was the entire thing. Thanks for kicking it here with me one more day. I appreciate all of you. Again, I'm doing this every day, so hit that follow button if you listen through so you don't miss the notification for tomorrow. If you do need anything, feel free to leave a comment. Tell me about what your favorite part of the event has been so far. And I absolutely appreciate all of you for being here, and congratulations for sticking through it. And I am excited to talk to you tomorrow. Have a good night.
Have you ever started something new that you were really excited about and invested time or money into, but after doing it for a while, you reach a point and you just feel like, I have no idea what the F I'm doing?
There's that bubbling up of frustration because you're not quite as good as you thought you'd be, or it's nowhere near as easy as you expected. Then suddenly, a wave of guilt comes at the same time, and you don't really want to or feel like you can express this to anyone.
Having a dream you want to accomplish can be very sad and isolating. It's lonely because visionaries tend to see the world the way that it could be instead of settling for the way the world currently is, like most people do.
We believe this so deeply that we wrote a book with the exact 4 steps to help.
This guide is designed to take you out of that feeling of frustration and overwhelm and lead you into the calmness and clarity that you need to reach the life that you know in your heart you're destined to have.
If you've started a project or a goal but have stopped, gotten stuck, or are starting to feel burned out, this is 100% the book for you.
Go to idkwtfpodcast.com today and download your digital copy with the coupon code ACTION to get it on us, because we want to join you and be your supportive friends and partners throughout your journey.
It's only free for a limited time if you use the code ACTION by going to our website, idkwtfpodcast.com.
Check it out today and let's get unstuck together.